Hey there, dear listener. I want to get you prepared for some more difficult things that are going to come up in this coming episode. We're talking about Rick and Morty and, the subject matter of some of the episodes. So we're going to perhaps mention some of these things in passing and talk on them a little bit more. But those content warnings are racism, capitalism, misogyny, sexism, harassment, anti-Asian harassment and hiring practices, divorce, childhood trauma, sexual assault, racism, use of the N-word, attempted child rape, and alcoholism. Hopefully those warnings are enough to get you amply prepared and in the right headspace before tackling this episode. If this isn't the episode for you, that's totally okay. Please keep yourself safe and protect yourself as needed. With that said, though, here's the episode. Hi, it's me, it's Cass. This week only, I'm hosting pre-orders for a t-shirt. It's of a Furby face, and you can put it on your body. Check it out on my Twitter. That's Valhethella. That's VALHETHELLA. You can support a queer artist this Pride. Okay, here's the episode. Bye! Hi, welcome to Author's Note.
Don't listen.
I'm so sorry. I almost chomped your beef there.
It's okay.
That's on me.
Do you want to do that one again?
No, let's leave it at it's organic, it's fresh, it's new.
Sure.
My name is Cass.
And my name. Do you want to introduce me?
Your name is Teese.
It sure
is. Teese, remember who you are. Teese, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm Teese.
Teese.
Cass.
Have you watched, read, eaten, devoured, brined anything fun this week?
So I finished up reading I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I know we talked about a few episodes ago. So that's over and I'm on to a different book now, but I will talk about that book once I finish it. And then, not to sound like a boomer, but I've been watching a Peacock original, and I know
Yeah.
you laugh, but I've been watching Girls 5 Eva, which is as awful as you think it would be, but I'm genuinely enjoying it.
What is it?
So it's Tina Fey produced it, so it is a little bit like SNL humory, but it's
Okay.
4 women.
Is it racist?
No.
Okay.
There's moments. It's I mean, but that you know how that is. So it's 4 women who were a part of a girl group called Girls 5 Eva, and they were a one-hit wonder in the late 90s, like 1999-ish. So it's a combination of like flashbacks to their old music and them currently, and it's about them trying to get back into the spotlight because a up-and-coming rapper used one of their songs as a sample. So they perform on Jimmy Fallon with the rapper, and then they're like, you know what, fuck it, like this is actually really fun, let's get back together, let's start performing our own music. So of course they have like a shitty old manager, so all their music is copyrighted, so they can't properly perform, and they are trying to write their own music while like Sarah Bareilles of Not Gonna Write You a Love Song fame
And Waitress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really do love Sarah Bareilles' first album. But anyway,
It's a good album.
It's a great album. Oh my god.
It's a great album.
Oh my god.
Welcome to Sarah Bareilles Memory Lane.
Literally.
This is our episode topic.
Fairy tale. Is it fairy tale? Yeah. Fairy tale bangs. Gravity bangs. Love song. Obviously bangs. Anyway.
Gravity grabs you by the heart and just rips you open.
Love Gravity. I'm gonna listen to that after this episode. Anyway, so like Sarah Bareilles is like, I don't know, man, I hate working for my brother's Italian restaurant and like shit like that type deal. But it's like it's kind of fun, and I have like 2 episodes left of it, and I'm kind of enjoying it. It's like my older white mom show to watch, I guess. Like sometimes Say Yes to the Dress gets boring, so been watching some Girls 5 Eva. What about you, Cass?
So this weekend, I got food poisoning. And I discovered that food poisoning is really just the 4 seasons of Rick and Morty that you had to watch for this terrible, terrible podcast that we do, Leaving the Body.
I'm so sorry.
So
sorry.
Please don't apologize. You know,
I was the one who recommended this episode.
Okay. You recommended the episode, but like I have watched Rick and Morty before. Spoiler warning. We're doing Rick and Morty this week.
If you didn't read the title.
Teese is doing Rick and Morty this week.
Yeah.
He turns himself into a pickle, Teese.
He turns himself...
It's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
He turns himself to a fucking pickle. God damn.
So, prior to this, I had seen seasons 1, and I want to say half of season 2 at least, if not all of season 2 of Rick and Morty.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen a fair bit of Rick and Morty. I had not seen Pickle Rick. I knew of Pickle Rick tangentially, but I didn't dislike Rick and Morty. I would say I enjoyed it. It's a dark show, and, you know, it does have, like, a lot of gross out bathroom humor, but I you know, mostly enjoyed it. You know, there's some fun stuff that happens with the animation, you know, there's some, like, really cool character designs that are happening, which, you know, like, will happen with anything when you have, like, a high concept sci-fi thing, and, like, you gotta be churning out aliens all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, there are some really fun moments in Rick and Morty. So maybe we should talk about and establish what Rick and Morty is for anybody who's not familiar before we really deep dive into this. But I watched Rick and Morty this week, and I suffered.
I did too.
But I also enjoyed it. Yeah.
So there's like, I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but there's a scene in season 3 where Jerry, like, kind of absorbs everybody or something like that and kind of, like, becomes Zen. And that scene is, like, fantastically animated. And I, like, it was like, what the fuck? This is, like, truly beautiful, this scene. But,
yeah.
First of all, if you don't know what Rick and Morty is, I envy you. But it's kind of, I mean, the best way to describe it is just the bare bones of it, I feel like. It's a adult animated show on Adult Swim. And it is about a high schooler and his grandpa who was out of his life and now suddenly is in his life and kind of in his whole entire family's life suddenly. And his grandpa happens to be the smartest guy in the universe. And because of that, they just get into a whole bunch of space hijinks, you know? Like Cass was saying, there's like a lot of barf and fart jokes and sex jokes and alien gags, and it's very popular with the stoner crowd, you know? But what's also really fun is that there's like a lot of improv in it that it's so awkward that it's funny, which I think really kind of lends itself to the humor. And truth be told, like, Justin
Roiland goes in the booth and he just starts spitting shit, and they're like, that's the episode.
Well, like, Dan Harmon does it too. Like, if you listen to him like on a podcast, like, it's literally just like, that's just how he is. And I mean, granted, like, the humor in it doesn't really work for me, but my god, when a joke hits, it hits really hard for me. Like, so it's one of those shows that's like actually kind of genuinely enjoyable. And like, like, if you are a stoner and you partake in the weed, it's probably a fun watch.
It's very much riffing off of the ideas of like Back to the Future of like weird old man and young boy sidekick, and like, how does that work out? And it's like, well, Rick and Morty is the satirical evaluation of that.
And it's also very much mix of like how when you are high and you're like, oh, this would be really funny, and you just like keep going on and on and on with the bit with your friends. Like, the show was very much like that, contextualized, which is fun. So Rick and Morty was created by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon, and besides Rick and Morty, you may know Justin Roiland as the voice of the Earl of Lemongrab from Adventure Time.
Adventure Time?
Yeah. And he's also the creator of Solar Opposites, which is another space adult animated show on Hulu. And Dan Harmon is the creator of Community. So you probably have seen Dan Harmon around multiple times without even realizing it. Also, in 2017, it was announced that Dan Harmon is doing a Sirens of Titan TV show, which I will not shut up about it when it does finally come out, because Sirens of Titan is my favorite Kurt Vonnegut book, but this is not important. So I want to warn everybody.
This is a Rick and Morty episode, not a Dan Harmon episode.
I don't give a shit. This is my episode. I wrote the outline. So the show began airing in 2013, and season 5 will begin on June 21st of 2021. Happy Pride Month! So the show has won several awards, and in theory, it's just like not a bad show. I mean, like we were saying earlier, all the seasons have over 90% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's even won 2 Annie Awards, which is like the Oscars of animation. Like, that's a really big deal. So the issue itself kind of just like lies in the fan culture of the series, which is like why a lot of times when people are like, oh, I'm a Rick and Morty fan, I'm like, go away. But I think it's like, it's not a bad show. But what were you going to say?
The really weird thing about Rick and Morty is that like a lot of the adult animated shows we have are like, they've got the gross out humor, right? But then on top of it, they're very punch down, or if they're like South Park, they punch in every single direction so as you can't tell who they agree with or who they don't. Rick and Morty doesn't punch down too much, and like one of the big running jokes of the show is how much the dad, Jerry, sucks. And Jerry is often the one who, like, punches down and, like, everybody gangs up on him for it. So, I mean, like, granted, please, if you are unfamiliar with Rick and Morty and decide after this episode that you want to check it out, please consult doesthedogdie.com for content warnings, because, like, Rick and Morty does deal with some, like, very heavy things, and, like, sometimes it deals with them well, and sometimes it deals with them realistically. That doesn't mean it deals with them well, and sometimes it deals with them pretty terribly.
Also,
but like, I mean, we're going to talk about it a little bit later when Teese gets into the crux of the Pickle Rick episode, but like, this show does revolve around broken people and acknowledges how broken and toxic they are to the people around them. And so like, this is not a feel-good show.
No, and even like in later seasons, however, that does kind of switch. Like, it kind of becomes that like they punch down Summer a lot, like in the end of season 3 and by season 4. And I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like the first episode of season 4, I think. But it's really unfortunate to see kind of like the shift slowly, like similarly through The Simpsons, like how Lisa Simpson slowly became the target at the end of the day. And we're starting to see that with Summer, which makes me really sad because I actually kind of really like Summer. But
Summer's a really interesting and fascinating character. And like, there's part of me that is slightly hopeful for that though, because like the show does have like quite long arcs, and like there is actual character development. This is not necessarily like you can go in with any episode and like you'll have a totally clear idea. Like this is not like villain of the week kind of deal. Like there is continuity between the episodes.
Yeah, definitely. So when I first suggested this episode to Cass, I was like, let's just talk about Pickle Rick. Like, we can say turns himself into a pickle, funniest shit I've ever seen, like a bunch of times. But then Foolish. But then I realized that like the first 3 episodes of season 3, in particular, episode 1, the Rick Shank Redemption, and episode 3, Pickle Rick, can be looked back on as 2 pieces of media that has fundamentally changed the landscape of internet culture. So originally we're just gonna like talk about the meme of Pickle Rick, but guess what? We're actually gonna have like legit talking points about the first and 3rd episode of season 3.
It's notable that the first episode of season 3 does not come out of nowhere. It's from a series of plot points that were built up over seasons 1 and season 2. Yeah. So like, they are not isolated episodes. Unfortunately, you have to watch the rest of Rick and Morty to kind of understand what's happening and what's going on.
And, I mean, we kind of do like a brief flyby on what happens in this, so hopefully that'll help. The Rick Shank Redemption aired on April 1st, 2017, and the general plot is that Morty and Summer, Rick's grandchildren, attempt to bust him out of prison. Of course, Rick is also attempting to bust himself out of prison. While in custody, Rick is placed into a machine that forces him into a virtual reality of his memories, and to the bug alien officer that kind of is like guiding him through this whole situation, he mentions something that has not really touched the collective consciousness since 1998, and that is the McDonald's limited edition Mulan promotional sauce, the Szechuan sauce.
Sister, I said any of this guess I'll deny it, and they'll take my side because I'm a hero, Morty. And now you're gonna have to go and do whatever I say, Morty, forever. And I'll go out and I'll find some more of that Mulan Szechuan teriyaki dipping sauce, Morty. Because that's what this is all about, Morty. That's my one-armed man. I'm not driven by avenging my dead family, Morty. That was fake. I'm driven by finding that McNugget sauce. I want that Mulan McNugget sauce, Morty. That's my series arc, Morty. If it takes 9 seasons, I want my McNugget dipping sauce, Szechuan sauce, Morty. That's what's gonna take us all the way to the end, Morty. Season 9 more.
Rick makes this sauce sound like so fucking good. Like, it's his white whale. And like, I get it. For a ton of people, especially the audience that the series caters to, we all have this like weird food item, I feel like, in particular, that we all vaguely have like in the back of our minds that was promotional, that like we regret never getting a chance to try. Because like, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, so much food was used as promotional material for like movies and TV shows that it was like,
it's coming back.
And it's coming back. It was unavoidable. Like, for me, my Mulan Szechuan sauce is the spirit, the Stallion of the Cimarron sundae from Baskin Robbins. Like, literally, I think only one other person remembers it when I like have mentioned it to people, but it just looked so good. It just looked so good. And like, I wanted it so badly. Mom's like, there's no fucking Baskin Robbins around here. Where are we going to get it? And I
never had this experience. There's no like promotional food that I've ever been like, wow, I'm sad I missed out on that.
I'm sorry, I'm a normie. My mom wouldn't let me have Lunchables as a child, and now I'm just like this. So
it's the only like promotional thing is like a seasonal offering at Starbucks. And it is the s'mores frappuccino that they bring out every summer. There was one summer they didn't bring it out, and I did tweet about it, and I was upset. But I also know what an absolute bitch that thing is to make for the baristas.
There we go.
So I'm sorry, but I do love it a lot, and I will tip. But I gotta have it. I gotta have
there
that
you go.
Weird, watery graham cracker drink.
That's your Szechuan sauce, I guess. So
that's my Szechuan sauce.
As Salon puts it in their article, how McDonald's Szechuan sauce went from a just fine 90s relic to a riot-causing cult condiment. It's actually a really great article, and I highly recommend if you don't know anything about this event that we're going to be talking about. But it's said...
It's a really funny moment in the series, because as mentioned above, Szechuan sauce wasn't overwhelmingly popular upon its initial release. All things considered, it was out for such a short period of time that opportunities to even try it were pretty limited. Here's a character that will obsessively bend space and time to get his hands on a dipping sauce that was just fine.
I even watched a commercial for McDonald's when this sauce came out, and I remember the toys for this promotion more than I even remember the sauce being a thing in the first place. Like, this sauce, like, I didn't even know it fucking existed, but I sure remember...
Well, your child mind was more oriented towards toys than food. I think we can be honest about that.
100%. And it's not like my mom's like, you want to try the dipping sauce? Because, like, once again, my mom was weird, and, like, I didn't really eat condiments until like later on in my life either. Like,
you're just really dragging your mom today.
No, I love my mom, but sometimes my mom is like afraid of the randomest food. Like, I've had ketchup and mustard and stuff like that, but like as a child, when like colored ketchup was a thing, my mom wouldn't let me have it. My mom wouldn't let me have the fucking green ketchup.
There was like a huge scare about food dye in the 90s, though, wasn't there?
She just thought it was gross.
It was just like a big thing.
She just thought it was fake
she's
food.
Not wrong.
Yeah, like I didn't have a kid cuisine ever in my home. Like I did have one.
I've never had a kid cuisine.
Whatever, they were microwave food. I've never had a Lunchable to this day. I think I had a Hot Pocket for the first time when I was 14. Like my mom, it just like never crossed the radar of my mom. Like if it wasn't ketchup or mustard, she'd be like, all right, like I guess you could have it if I asked her. But because I didn't think about Szechuan sauce, I didn't ask for it, you know? So
yeah.
Anyway, people after seeing this episode started petitioning and pestering McDonald's and anybody else who essentially would listen to get this sauce back out into the public. People were like selling the little packets for like $14,000 from the 90s out of their gross sauce packet vaults. I don't even fucking know. But
This should have been our first sign to shut down the internet as a whole.
For real.
Just stop it.
Oh,
just shut it down,
if that
cut
wasn't the first. But finally, McDonald's kind of caved.
This was like the last mark.
Yeah. Finally, McDonald's caved and decided just to bring the sauce back. And they...
Imagine bullying $1 billion corporation for some shitty fucking sauce.
Yeah, essentially.
Can we get the Rick and Morty people together to get us universal basic income?
Yeah, wow. Or
you guys can do it.
Or universal healthcare. That would be big sexy. But finally, McDonald's is like, all right, cool. So we gave Justin Roiland a jug of the sauce. And then they also gave him 3 additional jugs. And like he did it as a giveaway. And one of the people who won the sauce giveaway put it up for eBay for donations and like to pay for bills and stuff like that. And that jug of sauce went for $15,000. And do you know who won that jug of sauce?
Who?
The DJ Deadmau5. Like,
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't go for more.
Yeah, that's fair. But also, like,
maybe it's just me looking at the current NFT climate, but
I also think it's like, well, who has that much money to burn, but who is also a Rick and Morty
that's
fan?
also a Rick and Morty fan.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, how that sauce tastes, Mr. Deadmau5. Like, I just, oh my god. But anyway, so obviously now the masses like want to fucking try this sauce, and not just like a lucky handful of people who won this jug. So fast forward to about New York Comic Con 2017 weekend, which is in October, and McDonald's decides to free the sauce into the world. However, unsurprisingly, like most promotional events, McDonald's vastly underestimated how many Rick and Morty fans there were. Participating locations only had reportedly around 20 to 40 sauce packets and about 10 posters per each location. People were lining up. People were camping out. People were leaving Comic-Con to go to the nearby McDonald's for this. And it's ridiculous because I remember seeing, like, when it first happened, somebody who was like big into swapping, like up a chain type deal, managed to swap one of the sauce packets for a house. I remember like there were riots.
Holy shit.
I know. I was like, a fucking sauce packet? Are you serious? Like, you could have lived in this home and you traded it for a fucking Rick and Morty sauce packet. It's a fucking McDonald's sauce. Like, it's not that good. I promise you, it's not that good. And so like people were fighting the sauce. People were trying to sell it for like $2,000 a packet. And like, rioting broke out. People were like jumping on top of the counters of McDonald's. There was even possibly a reporting of a stabbing, if I recall correctly, but I don't know if that was disproven or not, so I won't be like, yes, there was a stabbing. But honestly, like, police had to be called. And looking back on this, like, first of all, seeing this happen is like, this is embarrassing. But even like looking back now with hindsight being 2020, this is even more embarrassing to see that this happened.
I think it's more embarrassing that like this thing kind of continues to happen.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
The fucking BTS meals that came out the other week, and people were going absolutely apeshit for them. And it's like, it's branding.
It's just chicken nuggets.
Listen, I get it. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism, and you want to get involved in the thing that you really love. But like, this to me is like the grossest perversion of fandom and of companies taking advantage of you. Like, it's just gross, and it is embarrassing. And like, I'm not gonna say like shame on you for participating in this. Do whatever makes you happy, but like, fucking retail and fast food employees do not deserve this kind of treatment. And these companies are well aware of what happens when they do this shit. Because, surprise, surprise, the media coverage, like, boosts their sales from all of this, like, wild batshit behavior.
And I get it, like, you love Jimin and you want your special edition McDonald's Jimin card or whatever the fuck, but, like...
The McJimin.
Yes.
I've heard people calling it the McJimin, and I couldn't stop laughing.
That's
like,
so fucking
stop
funny.
it.
Oh my god. But just like, it's It's okay. It's okay. Like when the McDonald's Pokemon cards came out, like a few months ago, I was like, chill, like calm down. It's okay. And like, guys, it's not that deep. You won't die if you won't have your special. Who's another BTS character?
You really won't.
The rat monster. I don't even fucking know.
I don't listen to BTS.
Suga? Yeah. See, I know BTS characters. Oh my god. But like, just, you don't have to have every single merch piece of your fave. Like,
I'm sorry, you don't know BTS characters?
Yeah, they're fucking designed in a lab. They're not real people.
Go back to the RPF episode, Teese. Sit down and listen for a while.
No, I won't. I don't know car breeds, and I don't know BTS characters. Anyway, after this event happened, McDonald's made a public apology and decided to bring back the sauce officially in 2018.
There is something equally disgusting to me about the fact that McDonald's apologized to the public,
yes,
and not to its own fucking employees,
yes,
who had to deal with this shit of like people jumping over the counters to try and take things from them because, like, listen, we all have been there. We all want a little extra sauce, you know? Nobody is satisfied with just one little thing of sauce. And it's like, if they only have 20 to 40 packets and there's like 80 fucking people outside, you know they're only going to give one per person, and you know people are going to get fucking pissed
80?
about that. I just...
Try like 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it was insane numbers. It was numbers wrapped around a block, like hundreds. Enough for it to be a riot. Like, it was so many people.
Fuck capitalism.
Fuck capitalism.
Disgusting.
Just bad. And to quote the Salon article again, Eater described the sauce as tasting mainly like corn syrup with maybe a tiny bit of Worcestershire thrown in. While Business Insider said it was like if you took a classic suburban American Chinese restaurant sweet and sour chicken and mixed it with some soy sauce and maybe a hint of sesame. It doesn't even taste good. Like, I wish I had something witty to say about this. But, like, at the end of the day...
You could go to the grocery store. You could go to the whitest local grocery store and probably find something that tastes leaps and bounds better than this ever did.
From their
But the thing is, like,
section.
It's not about the taste. It's not about eating it. It's about the fact that it got referenced in a cartoon you like, so you need to have the experience. And it's like, stop it.
Yes!
Stop. Evaluate your distance.
At the end of the day, it's just a TV show joke that got out of control. It's like... Would this happen if Dunkin' Donuts were to be like, hey, we're making a limited edition brew based off of Central Perk from Friends, but they only had one bag of coffee beans per store, and like Friends fans who are fucking in their 40s or 50s or whatever, like stormed the store. Like, it's embarrassing. Like,
yeah.
And like, I feel bad for like the casual Rick and Morty fans who just happened to like the show and weren't freaking the fuck out and attacking McDonald's employees and stuff like that. And me now in 2021, last night, June 5th, 2021, I looked on the McDonald's website to see if the sauce was even available. It's no longer available. Because it sucked. Like, nobody wants it after the initial hype, you know? It's not like, ooh, craving some Szechuan sauce. And, like, in the episode, they talk about how probably the reason why Rick thinks the sauce tastes so good is because there's nostalgia behind it. Like, I promise you, like, guys, I had Dunkaroos for the first time in 20 years the other day. They are not as good as you remember them being. I promise you, the Szechuan sauce is not as good as it was to you in 1998. Like... What is it? Not loneliness. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like, baby, it works for food too. Like, I promise you. But
every time I'm like, wow, I could really go for some Eggo waffles. I go and I eat them, and they're never as good as they are in my mind. They're good, but they're not as good.
A strawberry frosted donut.
Prosy D or Sungwon Cho has like this whole series on his YouTube channel where he'll just like eat every variety of something. And one of the ones he did was Lunchables, and he's like, these all suck.
Yeah.
They suck.
Yeah.
They're bad.
I remember, so like I said, I never had a Lunchable, but I remember one time a friend gave me a piece of cheese. from a pizza Lunchable, and I tried it, and I remember putting it in my mouth, and the first thing I thought of was, do you remember the like Windows 98, Windows XP era, like the 3D pipe screensaver?
Yeah.
That's like the reaction my body had. Like, I felt like I ate that piece of cheese, and all of a sudden, like, the Windows 98 pipes just like rocketed through my brain. I was like, this doesn't even taste like cheese. This tastes like 3D digital pipe. Like, even as like disgusting. A 7-year-old, I was like, this is disgusting. But anyway, now it's time to go to the most important icon out of the internet since fucking the Can I Has Cheeseburger. So, to continue the infamy of the season, we need to talk about the king of all Rick and Morty jokes, which is Pickle Rick, you know? Cass, if you were to see a pickle sitting on a workbench in your garage and it asks you to turn it over, would you turn over that pickle?
Yeah, I would turn the pickle over.
Yeah.
Like, if I have no okay. If I am living in Summer's position, right? And like I have lived Summer's life, and the pickle is in my grandfather's garage, and you know, his little space that he keeps, and then the pickle asked me to turn it over, I think I would leave the pickle. I wouldn't want to touch that. But if I, Cass, went into the garage right now and on the workbench there was a pickle and it said, hey, can you turn me over? I would turn that pickle over.
I respect
I got
that.
nothing to lose.
I respect that. But he turned himself into a pickle. Funniest shit you've ever seen. But so the hype for this episode was like ridiculous. So
it was through the roof.
It was through the roof. So at San Diego Comic-Con 2016, a rough cut animation.
A year before.
Yes.
The Szechuan sauce incidents.
Yes. Thank you. A rough cut of the animation of Pickle Rick was released, and it featured the scene of him attacking sewer rats. As the second season of the show ended with Rick jailed, this led a lot of fans to kind of believe like this is how he would escape jail or something like that. Like, there was a lot of like fan theories and stuff like that, and this kind of like led a lot of confusion when the third season premiered, because like it showed Rick escaping in a very different way. And 3 weeks prior to the episode's airing, free Pickle Rick t-shirts and other merchandise were given away at the 2017 Comic-Con in San Diego. So that means it was a literal whole year of hyping up one Comic-Con to another. And then the episode, like, then the season finally drops type deal. So it was like a really big deal, both like from a fan theory point of view, but then also just from like a promotional point of view. And
it was a big and confusing thing all around, like, even if you weren't a part of the Rick and Morty fan space, because the season premiere of season 3 drops on April 1st, 2017. So it drops on April Fool's Day. There was no lead up. There wasn't, promotions, announcements. Nobody knew when it was going to come. And people knew it had been signed for another season, but they weren't sure how long that wait was going to be, because there was about a 1.5 year long wait between seasons 1 and 2.
Wow.
And like, when people hear that Rick and Morty is airing and it's April Fool's Day, everybody assumed that it was either a rerun or that people were fucking with them. That like even the production crew was fucking with them, tweeting about it. And it's like, no, there's genuinely a brand new episode of Rick and Morty that is airing right now on April 1st that like is not what anybody expected, because it's not Pickle Rick.
Just like the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Get out.
Thank you.
I'm done. Podcast is over.
Bye.
That's
it. I love you. So
we're done. Okay. Goodbye. That's it. It's over. It was great while it lasted.
Yep. Sorry. Didn't even last a year, guys. Sorry about that. But like, this episode was the most anticipated episode of the season, maybe even the series, because of all the hype that was surrounding it, promotional and fan theory wise. And frankly, when this episode came out, it fucking exploded. Like, I looked at the numbers like of views, and it's actually one of the lower viewed episodes when it aired. However, the lasting effect that episode has on the season is fucking ridiculous. Like, you don't see people wearing shirts of the superhero group that's like in one of the episodes in the later in the season or whatever. You see Pickle Rick shirts. You see people with Pickle Rick tattoos. Like, but this...
I just need to confirm if yep, okay, yeah, it's real. There are Pickle Rick sex toys. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say about that. They're not officially licensed, but they exist.
There's $2,000 Pickle Rick boots, which low-key kind of want. Big sexy. But this...
Do it.
Yeah, you got $2,000. New podcast goal, $2,000. Teese buys the Pickle Rick boots. So... This episode
and has to wear them to every live show we do.
Okay. This episode is written by Jessica Gao, and it focuses on, as you can imagine, Rick turning himself into a pickle, and then the Smith family going to family therapy in the wake of Beth and Jerry being Morty's and Summer's parents / Rick's daughter and his son-in-law, in the wake of their decision to get divorced. And Rick being a pickle is kind of like a point of contention because he was supposed to go to therapy with the family and purposely turned himself into a pickle to avoid therapy. And like other stuff happens, like Rick using cockroach corpses to transport his pickle body, and he kills a bunch of like Russian agents and stuff like that. But for this episode, we're just mostly going to be kind of focusing on the therapy thing. So if you're a Rick and Morty fan, sorry, but we're going to talk about the lame stuff. And
no, I think this is like the most important part of the episode.
Nice.
And like Rick and Morty fans, I'm forcing you to sit down and think about this one because like there's something going back and watching this show, it became really, really, really confusing for me. The visible portion of the fan base's obsession with Rick. And like, to clarify, within this episode, he turns himself into a pickle to avoid therapy. And one of the key points of the episode is the fact that Beth, his daughter, does not want to recognize or acknowledge the fact that the serum she has now taken and has in her purse is to turn him back into a human, because he was going to turn himself back into a human the second they left. And like Summer and Morty are like very much like, Mom, he's avoiding going to therapy. Please just admit it. And she's like, no, I won't, you know? But it's like the Joker, right? The recent release. And it's just like, but Rick and Morty on such like a much more frustrating level, because the entire show is about telling you what a bad, selfish, and genuinely toxic person Rick and Beth are, because Beth is a carbon copy of her father.
Oh yeah.
And like the show explicitly tells you this. It's not like you have to pay attention and notice it. It's like the show explicitly saying Rick fucking sucks. And Beth sucks too, because she's literally Rick. And it's like the fandom fucking hates Beth and loves Rick. And it's like, gee, I wonder why. I wonder why.
Towards the end of the episode, Rick arrives at therapy to get his pickle antidote and is forced to face the therapist, Dr. Wong, who is played by Susan Sarandon. We're going to put a pin in that. Dr. Wong is played by Susan Sarandon. That's the next thing we're going to talk about after we talk about Pickle Rick. But Rick pushes off therapy, and to do that, Dr. Wong kind of like really lets Rick have it.
Rick, the only connection between your unquestionable intelligence and the sickness destroying your family is that everyone in your family, you included, use intelligence to justify sickness. You seem to alternate between viewing your own mind as an unstoppable force and as an inescapable curse. And I think it's because the only truly unapproachable concept for you is that it's your mind within your control. You chose to come here. You chose to talk, to belittle my vocation, just as you chose to become a pickle. You are the master of your own universe, and yet you are dripping with rat blood and feces. Your enormous mind literally vegetating by your own hand. I have no doubt you would be bored senseless by therapy, the same way I'm bored when I brush my teeth and wipe my ass. Because the thing about repairing, maintaining, and cleaning is, it's not an adventure. There's no way to do it so wrong you might die. It's just work. And the bottom line is, some people are okay going to work, and some people would rather die. Each of us gets to choose. Holy shit, I cannot communicate to you how much she finished saying that, and I just, like, I paused the episode and just sat there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it wasn't because it was something I needed to hear. It was something that it was like, it genuinely shocked me coming from this show.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's something kind of sad in the fact that it shocked me coming from this show, because, like, this show does have a lot of moments like this, but, like, this moment is so brutally honest about, like, the reality of therapy, that it isn't an adventure and it isn't always satisfying. It is just work. And, like, yeah, there are some people who would rather die than do that work. But, like, the consequence of that, right, is that they are rotting from the inside out more often than not, and, like, hurting everybody around them in the process.
Yeah. It shows, like, everything that's really wrong with Rick, that he is avoidant, that he's not willing to care or put in the effort for anything else except himself. And it's like, this is why you should not idolize this man. Like, you have the option to be a better person, and you actively choose not to partake in this.
Yeah.
And it's laid out so well too. Like, this should be a wake-up call for Rick and Morty fans. And it's like, what are you going to choose to latch onto?
I think, again, this is like an evaluation of distance thing, right? And, like, you can love this character of Rick, but it's when you start to, like, for lack of a better term, deify him and really want to emulate him and be him.
Yeah.
And the show does something really interesting in its format, right? Where it's like, Rick has been out of Beth's life for seemingly her entire adult and teenage life. She has had, like, no connection with her father whatsoever. But we start the show off, and he is just, like, seemingly seamlessly integrated into their family. And so you, as a viewer, don't quite understand the impact of Rick's choice to abandon his daughter on her psyche, right?
Yeah.
So the series is, like, this very, sometimes slow and sometimes, like, very fast-paced unwinding of the trauma that very much exists in this family because of Rick and Rick's actions that he chose to take. And, like, there's even a moment in the season 3 premiere, in the whole Szechuan thing, where it's like, you think for a moment that maybe Rick abandoned Beth and his wife because he accidentally kills them in one universe, and it is to spare them. And he's like, no, sucks. I just made that up. That's totally fake. That's totally constructed. That's not what happened. We don't know the circumstances by which Rick abandoned Beth, but, like, the series lures you into this false sense of security by saying, like, hey, Rick is just, like, a part of the family. This is, like, a normal everyday thing. He kind of sucks, but then it, like, very slowly builds and snowballs into, like, this man is terrible. He treats everybody around him terribly. Like, it's just, it's really baffling to me, and I think a lot of fans have latched on to Rick because of, you know, like, unfortunately, incel culture and these ideas of superiority, and, you know, like, that is a whole other can of worms that, like, we are just clinically not capable of unpacking.
Yeah, and
but, like, we can talk about it.
Yeah, and as you were saying, it's like, what do fans choose to latch onto? The whole, like, yeah, Morty, I turned myself into a pickle. But then the other side of this is actually that this episode was written by a woman, specifically an Asian woman, which, like, I'm not going to, like, talk about the whole issue that we have and myth that Asian women are submissive, because, like, I'm just not Asian. Like, I don't feel comfortable speaking about this and dissecting this as, like, is this just a woman thing? Is this specifically an Asian woman thing? I mean, episode 2 is also written by a woman, but, like, it's not... I didn't even know. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I don't think as many people were, like, coming out of the woodwork to be like, women shouldn't be writing this show, whatever. But, Pickle Rick itself, like I was saying earlier, premiered with 2.3 million views, but it was an instant hit. Like, we know how big this hype was, and yet there was, like, backlash from viewers saying that a woman shouldn't be writing this episode. My guy, the thing you've been quoting this whole entire time came from a woman's mind. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Arguably, this is, like, probably one of the best episodes of the series in terms of like its narrative form, its display of like the characters for who they are as people, and like still having that like absolutely buck wild high concept sci-fi going on at the same time.
Yeah, and to add insult to injury, this is the first season of Rick and Morty as well. Season 3 was the first season to include women in their writers' room for the show. And so in Whiting Wongs, which is a show actually hosted by Gao and Dan Harmon, which we will talk about, it was mentioned by Harmon that it was like when season 1 came out, it just kind of was like, holy shit, like let's just get all of our friends together to write this show, which like is suspicious in itself, because like why don't you have female friends that are in writers' rooms? Like what the fuck? But the next thing is, when season 2 was rolling around, when they were asking for specs and stuff like that, a lot of agents were only kind of sending other white dudes with humor specs that are nerdy and XYZ and into stoner culture and stuff like that. So it kind of was like an Ouroboros in a way. But by the time that the 3rd season came around, it was a lot more people involved in the show. And I don't think Dan Harmon specifically asked for more people of color, more women or anything like that. But it just happened to be that because of its popularity, more people were willing to be like, hey, I really think that you should submit my spec to Rick and Morty. And I think that's how a lot more women came about. And as Dan Harmon said, he kind of accidentally made a writer's room more diverse because of the popularity of the show itself, which is kind of fascinating. But like Hollywood, I'm not going to talk about this because I just don't know enough, you know?
There's like a twofold aspect to this that's like really interesting, right? And it's like, I don't know how to tell you that, you know, women can also do nasty, gross out humor that is intelligent and witty and works on multiple levels. But also the fact that like your jokes will have more impact and will stay with people longer when they are delivered from a place that like actually engages with the empathy towards the characters and like really roots those jokes in like a deeper meaning, and like that also is going to make your stoner humor a lot more it just makes it better.
It's good writing.
Depth good. And like it's not like they weren't already tackling, you know, really heavy emotional issues in like previous seasons too. Like there's this whole arc where like Rick's ex is literally a hive mind entity who inhabits an entire planet, and like they can't be together because anytime they're together, the entire planet goes into absolute chaos because she starts drinking, she starts doing drugs, all she cares about is having sex, and she can't run the facilities of her entire planet. Like hospitals start crashing, people aren't focused, surgeons are falling apart because the surgeon's doing surgery, and at the same time, a part of his consciousness is also having sex with Rick. And it's just like, at the end of that episode, he tries to kill himself and fails because he's like so out of it and so bereft. And it's just like...
and
tragedy.
And just like Gao faced so many insults and like ridicule from Rick and Morty fans. And it's like, why? Just like... close your eyes.
We know why.
I mean, yeah, we know why, but also like I've said in the past, just close your eyes and walk away. Like you are
but that's
physically
also a question
choosing.
for me. It's like, who actively went and like was looking at who wrote that episode and like why did they have a problem with it? You know, like what was their issue with the episode?
And
you know,
I get it. Like sometimes people do dumb stuff for attention, especially 15-year-olds, and like it's kind of like a situation where it's like you are jealous of this person for having your dream job and you don't know how to, in a healthy way, figure out how this can become you. Like instead of being like, oh, you suck, you shouldn't be writing for Rick and Morty, to a 34-year-old when you are 15, maybe you should like consider going to a fucking writer's workshop. Maybe you should watch like a lessons from the screenplay video on YouTube or some shit. Like there are so many, and I think at the end of the day, I don't want to say it's QAnon or anything like that, but I think it's people who have kind of been indoctrinated into this whole movement of men who really believe that just fucking entitlement, misogynist.
It's a culture of entitlement.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like the same idea that, oh, women ruin everything. Women ruin the things that I care about. But is she really ruining this thing? Because it's like, she wrote this. Like, she gave this to you. She is physically a part of the lore of Rick and Morty now, essentially. Like, it's so frustrating. And I know, like, even us, we've got comments before in the past just being like, uninstall, which is like my favorite fucking comment we've ever gotten ever.
Oh, that wasn't even the comment I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've had several. We've had more than one. But like, just the idea that we're not, like, I'm sorry you don't want to face that it's fucking 2021, I guess 2017 when this came out, and that women no longer have to stay in front of the stove. Like, I'm sorry that a woman who is an immigrant, who is funnier than you and is a better writer than you, is getting a job that chances are you will never have. Like, that's just sometimes how it is.
Like, and like, yes, that's the reality of the situation. And like, people need to learn to sit in their discomfort with that, of the fact that, like, yes, there are always going to be people who are better than you. There's another aspect to it though. And like, I don't know how much of this is like American independence ideas. And when I talk about independence, I mean like singular individuality and that kind of deal, not like American country independence. But this idea, right, that it's like, if somebody's better than you, it's shameful to try and reach out to them to learn from them. Like, okay, you're a 15-year-old. Like, social media is at your fingertips. And if she has a Twitter account, why are you harassing her instead of saying like, hey, you work on Rick and Morty, and that's something I would really love to do one day. Can I ask you about how you got there and how you got that chance and like that opportunity? Like, build bridges instead of fucking burn them.
And then that like just looks poor on you. It looks like, I'm gonna be like, oh, this stops you from getting into the industry.
Learn to engage with things with love and respect.
Yeah. Trust me, it'll make your life so much better. You'll feel so much better about yourself. I promise you that, man. Like, I genuinely promise you that. But
you'll probably be a more well-rounded individual.
More opportunities will also come to you as well. But to get back to the episode, you know, it's kind of like, I just wanted to be like, so like, why do people love this episode? Like, people fucking love Pickle Rick. Like, it's funny. Here's why. But like, now that I've seen this and I've done my research, it's kind of like, I'm not sure why this has captivated audiences so much. Just the phrase "I'm Pickle Rick," you know, like I want to say that it's like,
I think it's just the absurdity of it.
Yeah, and I think it's like because we actually like see Rick struggle, and it shows that he's a human, and I want to say human in quotes because he's currently a fucking pickle. But like, why does it resonate with so many people? And I doubt like most of the people watching the show would be able to survive this situation that Rick is put in, but it shows that Rick has resilience. It shows like truly the violence he is capable of, you know. It shows this excitement of the show at its core, and I think it kind of like reminds us of why we I'm saying as like the viewers love Rick and Morty, especially Rick in particular, in its purest form. And then to see him absolutely get dunked on by Dr. Wong, oh my god, like it's such a like just a polarizing experience, you know. I mean, if you do actually absorb what Dr. Wong is saying and not just like roll your eyes at it. But
you know what it reminds me of?
Tell me, what does it remind you of?
Shinji Ikari.
Oh, Cass. But
hear me out here.
No, it's true. You're right, though. You're right.
Yeah. There's this weird thing that happens, and like I want to do an episode on this, but I don't even know how to begin to tackle a concept this nebulous of like viewers both loving and hating the character they see themselves in and the character they want to be. And like, how many times do you see people complain about Shinji and just get in the fucking robot? And it's like, Shinji is a literal reflection of the audience of, I'm talking about Mr. Shinji Ikari, Neon Genesis Evangelion, of like his fear and his trauma and being a small child and not wanting to go to war, right? And like, so many viewers like resent and hate him for that. And like, I think that's the same thing that's sort of happening with Rick, right? It's like, okay, Rick is like this weird power fantasy that people have that they want to be, you know, they want to be the smartest person in the room. They want to be able to have a witty comeback for literally absolutely everyone. And then, like you said, Dr. Wong fucking levels him. And she's like, you're terrible. You're not healthy. You are suffering. And suddenly the audience has to go, oh shit, wait. If I'm Rick and Rick is me and I see myself in him, then she's saying that about me.
Yeah. It shows that there are different ways to be strong and powerful. And it shows that there are different ways how you can command a room. And I think not a lot of people want to accept that taking the high road in a way can make you, in fact, the better person sometimes. Like, I get it. We all have revenge fantasies for stuff. But, like, I think Dr. Wong is kind of a shock for a lot of people because of that. I think then what we really got to talk about is the elephant in the room, which is Dr. Wong as well. And despite Wong very clearly being an Asian character, is voiced by Susan Sarandon, who is a white woman. And for people who don't know who Susan Sarandon is, she is Janet in Rocky Horror Picture Show. She is in a plethora of things, but more importantly, she is the mom in the Speed Racer live action movie.
Which is she's a phenomenal character actress.
Oh my God.
Been everywhere.
She's like you would recognize her without even realizing it once you like see a picture of her. But she is also a white woman, and like hell yeah, if Susan Sarandon was like, hey, can I guest star on your show? I'd be like, fuck yeah. But Gao very clearly specifically wrote Wong so an Asian actor could get more work, because Gao is a Chinese woman and was like, shit, man, like other people in the industry who are also Chinese have a really hard time being given roles. And as the episode aired, a few people were clearly upset by this, as we should be, which actually inspired the creation of the podcast Whiting Wongs.
By no means does this excuse Susan Sarandon or anybody in casting, but I think the one difference that is prevalent in voice work as opposed to live action, like in-person work, right, with like physical acting, is that voice actors often don't know the character that they are portraying, and sometimes that character is not even like fully realized in design or background until after they've done their lines, which was like I think the case with Laura Bailey when she played Nadine in Uncharted. And like Laura Bailey is a white woman and Nadine turned out to be a black woman, and people were like rightfully upset with Naughty Dog. And you know, they took that out on Laura Bailey because she's a lot more accessible, and she's like, I did not even know what this character was going to look like. She's like, I had no idea she was a black woman. And like, unfortunately, this thing kind of happens a lot. And like, casting and showrunners will just like sort of let voice actors take the heat for it, which is like not okay whatsoever, and you know?
Gao even was like, should we change her last name? Should we rewrite her? And I mentioned it later on, but Roiland and Harmon kind of just thought it was like, they didn't even realize that this would be an issue. They just kind of thought it was like funny in a way that...
Because they're two white men.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're two white men who have this privilege and they don't have to think about this. And that's what a lot of Whiting Wongs is actually about. So Whiting Wongs focuses on and kind of explores the issues of racism, both like at large within the country, but then also within the writing industry and Hollywood as a whole, which is actually really... It's actually a pretty good listen. Like I mean, I haven't listened to the whole thing because it's 28 episodes and it's about an hour each. And granted, I only have like an hour commute, you know, so I've listened to the first 4 episodes in full. I'm probably going to keep listening to it and finish out the first season, but it's like really illuminating and it actually gave me a really good understanding of what goes on behind closed doors, I guess, which is nice. Like I didn't even know that companies like CBS and ABC and stuff like that have diversity initiatives and will actually put in the budget for a show a diversity initiative and will hire a staff writer to be kind of brought on for quote unquote free to the expense of the actual company like NBC instead of the showrunner's budget. So what will happen sometimes is that diversity hires will end up getting hired, but then we'll just be stuck at staff writer, which is the lowest rung on the ladder, and only get paid like $30K a year, which is awful. Like I've lived on $30K. It's not fun, you know? And
Not to mention if you're living in LA,
yeah, which is
or
even
New York City, like
worse.
It's not possible.
It's not possible in fucking New Jersey. I can't even imagine how it's possible in New York or in LA. So it's like Jessica Gao even mentions that like one of her friends was stuck as a diversity hire staff writer for 3 seasons of a show, which is unheard of because they just did not want to pay this writer more money. So this show is actually a super fun listen, and in the opening episode, like I was saying earlier, Harmon blah, 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 so never mind. I just read that line earlier. So for Gao, this whole experience of this episode's a little frustrating because, as I was saying earlier, there's so few Asian roles in Hollywood that she tried to create one and then it got taken away. Like she made the space. Like she made space at the table for somebody to sit at this table, and then the manager essentially was like, no, and just took the chair away and put it back at a different table. So it's like really
the fucking heartbreak too of like you make space for an Asian actor and like you're just being as broad as possible there, and it's like the amount of times where it's like, hi, we have a Japanese character and we're just gonna pick a Chinese person to portray them, and it's like, are you like you can't even attempt to like, it's just it's terrible. And it's terrible.
For people who don't see what's wrong with this, like, come on, use common sense. There are a plethora of white roles for white actors, but when there's a role made for Asian actors, it's such a small chance that it's even happening in the first place that it's frustrating to see another white actor take this role. And this has been continuously an issue within Hollywood, especially like I know
it's continually an issue with Scarlett Johansson.
Oh my god, Scarlett Johansson is every race. She was the star of Ghost in the Shell. See, even like Emma Stone saying, I said I was sorry in a bit during the Oscars for taking the lead role in Aloha, which was technically based on a woman who was half Hawaiian and half Japanese. So it's like really a common issue. And for it to even happen in animation, it's like, come on, really? Which is like been something that has been talked about a lot recently. And just like, I mean, guys, if you're gonna like argue with me,
this is reminding me of when Natalie Portman made her dress that had all of like the female directors who were snubbed at the Oscars, and it's like people looked at her production company and they haven't had like a single thing that was directed or written by a woman, and it's like, you're part of the problem.
Yes,
like you have the power to make the space and you're not making it.
And for Jessica Gao, who's just a writer who happened to write an episode, not even a showrunner, not even a head writer for a show, gave this opportunity and then it got taken away. Like, just fucking like use Google. Like, chances are you're an adult listening to this. Just use Google and use common sense, I
mean, she arguably wrote a concept that was like, is one of the most enduring memes online for one reason or another. And it's like,
such a mess. And it's like, granted, neither one of us are Asian, so like I don't really want to say I'm an authority on this, but it's like pretty obvious that the lack of consideration, despite Harmon calling himself a liberal, there's always going to be some deep-seated racism somewhere down the line that you don't realize that you have.
Yeah. You have to work to be anti-racist, It is like, it's a conscious thing that you have to untrain in yourself to like start seeing these things and start being aware of them. And like, there is partially a problem in the fact that he's like, well, I didn't intend to make a diverse writer's room. It just sort of happened. And it's like, okay, but that says to me that you weren't even considering the fact that you had like an all-white writer's room at one point. Or that it was all men at one point. Like, did that not concern you at all? Like, you need to think about these things. And like,
they talk about it big time in Whiting Wong's.
Whiting Wong sounds like a great example of like how you can become aware of yourself and work to be better. And like, listen, you can't go back and scrap the first 2 seasons of Rick and Morty, but going forward, you can make changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it doesn't help to agonize over things you've done in the past. You need to move forward and be better and make reparations and apologize sincerely.
Yeah. So Whiting Wong's jokingly states that they're going to end racism by the end of the season, but it builds actually a really good dialogue that helps generate a conversation about like defaults, resources, and availability within writers' rooms in Hollywood in general. And I know down the line they have guest spots. They do like emails and question and answers and like conversations with each other. And it's really fascinating because even by the 4th episode, Dan Harmon is starting to realize how much of a fucking idiot and how privileged he is. And it's like really exciting to see both Gao and Harmon kind of just like talk to each other in this and just kind of like realize, like, Dan totally sits in his discomfort in a lot of the show, and I really appreciate it because, like,
good.
I mean, like, yeah, because I even have, like, I mean, like, listen, if you were raised white, you like everybody has racism within them. Like, I'm sorry, like, it is just culturally how we are built up, and we need to actively like sit on some things that we say. And like, I get it, you know, like, I'm not going to give the speech, but it's really nice to see Harmon realize in moments, and in turn, like, me realizing something. Like, I never think about writers' rooms. Like, I'm not, you know, like, I don't write scripts.
It's like that one fucking segment from that show that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon ran together, where they started like talking down to, I believe it was a black woman. I don't totally remember the scene, but they're like, listen, we don't care about diversity behind the camera. We need to see it in front of the camera. And it's like, no, it needs to be both, you idiots.
Yeah.
And like, you two white men are not the ones who get to decide that, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess to wrap up this episode, I guess I would like to kind of talk about like the thing that really bothered me the most about Pickle Rick is just how anti-therapy the whole episode is. So I don't know.
I got a very different impression from this episode.
I mean,
so I actually disagree that it's anti-therapy.
So I don't think the episode is, I guess that's worded poorly. I think Rick himself is anti-therapy, and that kind of scares me a little bit because, like we were saying earlier, like, so many men want to emulate Rick, which is like, first of all, like, why would you? But as we continue to portray therapy in pop culture this way, it's going to make it harder and harder for people to accept that they need therapy. And here's like a really big moment for Rick to kind of become a better person and like actively reflect on his life and his relationship with his daughter, since like literally 2 episodes prior, he's forced to like relive this fake explosion that like changed his life forever, to like use as bait essentially. Yet like we only remember this episode for the shitty promotional sauce. Like, we don't go like, oh, isn't that kind of fucked up that Rick used possibly like the fake, like the death of his wife and child in another dimension to kind of like be a ruse. Like, it is set up to show that Rick is not a good person over and over again. And granted, I think by the end of the 3rd season, Rick does come around a little bit, but I don't know if people are willing to like connect the dots. And especially by the end of the episode, it ends with Rick as a human finally again and making plans with Beth to go to a bar while Morty and Summer stare off into the distance, listening to their conversation about going to the bar together. And with this scene, it's so obvious that Summer and Morty should continue to be in therapy and to go back to Dr. Wong, whether it's for just like the traumatic experience that they have been dealt with essentially by Rick's hand, or by their own mother choosing to go through a divorce with their father. You know, like, they need therapy, and yet this is played off as a joke, which is like really upsetting for me, I guess, because like I have my own shit, you know, and just like, damn, like, I wish there was a bigger push for so many people that I know for them to like just to go to fucking therapy. But anyway, Cass, what was your note?
So Summer and Morty, like, they're not just staring off into the distance in that scene. They make several moves to like lean forward into the space between the front seats to say like, I liked her. Are we gonna go back?
Yes.
Like, they want to go back. They want to be in therapy. And I think like this scene is actually from just like a purely critical writing standpoint, this scene is a really great, I think, opportunity for conversation about how you can't force people to go to therapy, because they will resent it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They will just block it all out.
Oh, yeah.
And like, Beth and Rick are both incredibly manipulative people. I mean, Jerry is also incredibly manipulative, but in a very different sort of way. But like, that is also talked about and like really aggressively punched at by Rick in particular, which calling the kettle black. But there is an honesty in the fact that it's like, yes, pretty much everyone would benefit from just like the act of going to therapy, but you can't force people to go to therapy. They will resent it, they will shut down, they will not acknowledge it, it won't be healthy for them. And, you know, like a lot of the time spent in like that family therapy session is, you know, Dr. Wong just like trying to get Beth to acknowledge even the most basic truth in front of her. It's like, your father was trying to avoid this, and like Beth won't. She can't. She's not at a place where she is even a little bit ready to do that. But like Summer and Morty are. Summer and Morty see through the bullshits of the adults around them and like want to be better. And so like in a nebulous space where if these were real people, like I have hope for those children, but they are fictional characters, and whatever the writers want to happen to them will happen to them. I have hope that like maybe that narrative will, you know, maybe project something a little bit more towards like the way BoJack went, where it's like, you know, you need to get better. This isn't okay.
Damn, we're gonna end up watching season 5 like legit.
Yeah, we will.
We are.
I'm invested.
At this point, like, I'm invested to see, like, these kids come out okay, you know? Like, and it's, like, really frustrating because, like, if you listen to Roiland and Harmon speak, like, outside of the show, you know, it's really obvious that the show is satire. Like how you were saying earlier, it's such a satire on, like, Back to the Future and other corny... oh my god, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the very early space sci-fi movies that were like a thing in the 50s and the 60s and stuff like that. Like the alien designs, the ray gun situations, just like the antics of it all. Like
the Plumbuses. The Plumbuses. Does Plumbus mean nothing to you? Please continue on your point. I'm so sorry.
What is a Plumbus?
You know, a Plumbus. Everybody has a Plumbus.
Oh, the Plumbus. Okay, I was like, what are you talking about? The Plumbus
from intergalactic cable.
Yes, yeah, like the Plumbus. Yeah, like the Plumbus. I blocked it out.
The Plumbus.
The Plumbus. It's just like this is so obvious that the show is satire to people who do know. I don't want to be like know their movie history, but to people who know these tropes, it's clearly satire. But like to the average person, I don't know, man. People take this show way too seriously, the same way that people take South Park too seriously. Like, it makes me a little nervous.
On that note, I would like to say something.
Please.
So
I see your note.
I read an article. I read an article several years ago that has since stuck with me and has like permeated every thought I have had, largely about white men in writing rooms. And like this coming from a white trans man, so like, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But the article was about how Quentin Tarantino has really eschewed like this indie darling space and become too popular for his films to be as racist as they are. Because like, I don't know if you've ever seen a Quentin Tarantino movie, but the man very much is using them to drop the N-word whenever he pleases.
Oh my god. Quentin Tarantino loves to show feet and say the N-word.
And like his movies have become too much this thing with where like the popular culture loves to like binge them like traditional popcorn movies.
Yeah.
That it's like it's really sort of like dangerously irresponsible for you to just like take this word that isn't yours and to commodify and normalize it and like use it for comedic effect, use it for dramatic effect, especially when that word has never been used to harm you. And like that's kind of how I feel about like this therapy scene and like Rick's overall, you know, attitude. Like I don't know that like for the time being white men should really be necessarily allowed to like write this character and make him like the focal point, like even with heavy criticism, because like there is heavy criticism of Rick in the series, but clearly not everyone picks that up.
Yeah.
And like, that's just like, you can't control that. Like that is kind of the beauty of art, is that everybody brings something new to it, and you're never ever going to be able to control the perception that your viewers have over it. I mean, like, that's where we ran into the problem with Anne Rice, right? Is that like she tried to police it to a degree that like she turned into the villain.
Yeah.
And it's just like there is something genuinely kind of scary about like the empowerment and emboldening of people who see themselves in Rick when Rick is such an objectively terrible person to everyone around him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on even the most basic levels, like, he fails in almost every way to protect and care for Morty, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, there's an episode that's, like, still really difficult for me to watch, and, like, it's an episode where Morty is like, I want to play in the adventure for once, and Rick is like, sure, totally cool. And in that same adventure, like, Rick is shitting on it the entire time, and Morty goes to the bathroom, and somebody tries to rape him.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much there. It's on the screen, and, like, it's not played as a joke, and, like, people are kind of, like, when I watched this with friends, I was literally told by them, they're like, it's okay, it gets handled really well. And I'm like, okay. The way it, quote-unquote, gets handled really well is that, like, Rick takes Morty, shoves him through a portal, and then ostensibly, when Morty's not looking, turns around and shoots the guy. And it's just like, that's not handling it really well. That's not acknowledging the trauma that Morty has been through. The fact that somebody just attempted to rape a young boy. And
may I make a recommendation, actually? If you do wish to see sexual assault like that actually be handled really well in an adult animated film, I highly recommend Tuca and Birdie. It's handled so gently and so kindly that I just it like has just left such a deep impression on me that this is how everybody should be handling this, you know, like everybody, like if you're gonna have this narrative, maybe this is how we should continue to do it. And Tuca and Birdie also comes back the 13th of this month, so I'm super excited. But I'm so excited. And so I guess to just wrap up the episode, because what you just said I think is a really good way to end that conversation. So my one final talking point is in researching this episode, I found the original Pickle Rick meme. And are you aware of how this meme came to be?
Nope.
It was on iFunny with a gif of Donald Trump talking to Jeffrey Epstein. And in the gif, they're like kind of talking each other and like smirking and chuckling and stuff like that. And the caption is, I kid you not, Jeff, he turns himself to a pickle. He's called Pickle Rick. That's it. I hate this meme. I hate this meme so much. And I feel stinky and gross that I had to do all the research for this episode. So with this, good night, Mr. Coconut. I am taking a shower. Goodbye.
Yeah. Wow.
Bad.
Things I didn't expect to be as long as this, but like it's always the ones we don't expect to be heavy hitters that just like come around and they're like, I'ma get you. I am sure we will get quite a few people who are maybe, for lack of a better term, Rick and Morty apologists in our comment section on YouTube.
Too bad.
If that's the case, you are totally welcome to disagree with us. But, you know, I guess I just ask that you do it respectfully. And, you know, I'm not going to attack your person, so I would ask that you don't attack mine. But I'm also coming to the internet with that request. So,
yeah.
To re-push you so. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean so much to us if you could just, like, leave us a review or share us with a friend. Like, that would be huge. That's, you know, how we find more people and, you know, we reach more hearts and minds to have these conversations because like we think these are important conversations to have and like they're worth having even if sometimes they seem about ostensibly silly stuff. If you really liked the podcast, you can support us via Ko-fi with a one-time donation, or you can consider checking us out on Patreon. We are Authors Note Pod on both of those platforms. On Patreon, we do bonus episodes at least once a month, sometimes more. If you want more information about the show and where to find us, you can check out our website. That's authorsnotepod.com. My name is Cass, and you can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at Valhethella. That's VALHETH. Fuck, for the beginning of the episode. I am currently, this week only is like the last week that this will be going on. I'm doing pre-orders for a shirt. If you like Furbies, check out my Twitter. That's Valhethella. That's VALHETH. They're Furbies on a shirt. You can wear the Furby face. It's very terrifying, but you could have it, and you can support a queer artist. That's me, this pride. Teese, where can people find you on the internet?
You should make a little announcement at the beginning of the episode. Also, I just want to say, if you do like the show and you wish we'd cover a topic, shoot us an email. Give us a comment on YouTube. We would love to hear ideas for episodes. We would love to generate conversation. Even though we don't reply or interact with all comments and like tweets and messages and stuff like that, we do read them. Like, we do enjoy hearing from you. And I would like to just give a shout out to just every person who doesn't necessarily always agree with us, but is still willing to have a civil and generate a conversation with us in a really great way. I think shout out big time to our YouTube community. You guys are really awesome. I really love the work that you've been doing. But you can find me
every morning. I wake up and I check my email and I see comments from some of y'all, and I'm like,
"Wow,
Teese, it's our favorite commenter."
It's literally like
we know your names.
We know who you are. You can find me on Twitter at Vicuña. That's Vicunad. You could also find me on the Fresh Podcast Market, a real podcast about fake podcasts. We have an episode coming out this week, if I believe correctly. And you could also find me on Down by the Sea, a maritime horror zine that is currently in pre-order. You can check them out at Sideshow Pub on Twitter. I think they actually just made a Facebook and a Tumblr as well, so you could check them out there. Or you could go on the Gumroad and pre-order the zine at gumroad.com/Sideshow Pub. Our theme music was done by James Wyulo, and you could find him on Bandcamp under James Y. Cass, who did our cover art?
Our cover art is done by the wonderful and incredible and my favorite Nyaliest. You can find her and her talking about Final Fantasy XIV, which God, I can't wait to finish editing and maybe play a little bit of on Twitter at Nyaliest. It's NYALLIEST. Until next time, avoid the pickle in your garage. Continue to wear your mask. Make sure to get your vaccine if they're available to you. Otherwise, keep socially distancing and being safe. Bye.
Bye. I feel like
Funniest shit I've ever seen.
Turns himself into a pickle. Funniest shit I've ever seen.
I kid you not.